down during the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Valerie?
Yeah, hi, I'm Valerie. I also live in Cambridge. And I wanted to let the committee know that I use social media to do a little straw poll that neighborhood and got a good deal of support for tighter restrictions on large houses and show voices against. And I too wanted to speak to the generational issue because I'm in my mid-30s and we bought our house in Hidden almost 3 years ago, and I'm raising 2 children. I like the neighborhood as it is, in part because it evokes what I see as a better time when people value a little yard space and let their children play outside, which they do in our neighborhood. And you didn't need 1,000 square feet for a person at least to live a good life. And as the parent of young children, I'm concerned about the environmental implications of a world where in valley weather, 4,500 square feet needs to be air conditioned all summer. And I don't think that my generation, I think, actually has feelings that are more similar to many of yours that may be represented here, and it's true that most of us don't show up, and that's a shame. I've also seen the resolution that John Iceland submitted to you, and I'm an attorney, and I think it's incredibly elegant, incredibly pragmatic, and a great thing to consider.
Anyone else who wanted to speak on this issue that has not spoken yet?
You have a card for me.
Oh, yes, I do. You had 3 different things.
I'm famous for that at SCS. Richard Adams, different item. Richard Adams, Sherman Oaks adjacent. We have an RFA, and I want to give you a couple things that I saw happen during RFA process. One of the problems we have is it got watered down the process, and we found that the green bonuses winding up with huge houses. Somebody talked about the flats. The hillside mansionization will cover the hills, but you need something here to cover the flats. The big problem, no matter what you get, is getting DBS and the rest of the city to actually enforce the ordinance, whatever it is, which we all know. If the city won't enforce the ordinance, you can have the best ordinance in the world, and you might as well have a roll of Sherman. It's useless. And the other problem we had is we had neighborhood council election come through while the RFA was being debated. The land molesters got involved, elected a few people on the board. It wasn't a majority that was enough to help the watering down process. So you need to, if you're going to do this, participate in your elections if you're concerned about things. And something was also said about property rights. I'm a firm believer in property rights and a firm believer in constitutional rights. I spent 20 years, 11 months of some very odd days at the California National Guard. I left a good portion of my health there, working for people's rights and defending them. Remember the retired reserve now, so it's still important to me. And yes, you have property rights, but your property rights start to mitigate, not mitigate, but start to weaken as you cross your property line. And what you're doing on your property impinges and degrades your neighbor's property rights, which is equally valuable. Then we get into the balancing thing, which is where we get into everybody participating in the ordinance process and coming up with an equitable solution that balances everyone's. And until you get an RFA, working on that lady, I've decided to invoke my own RFA at Studio City, which, in case the DBS and stuff doesn't do anything right, if somebody buys the properties contiguous with mine, I will have to enforce them as my religious belief to go out in the backyard naked for several hours every day. They put on a Speedo thong because it's cold. So be involved, be participatory, and strive to be fair.
Is there anyone else?
Can I say a quick word?
Yes.
I did not fill out a card because I couldn't find a parking space.
Can you hand her a card? Okay, you can fill that out after you speak.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Hi, my name is Beth Sussman. I live on 7th Street, just one block from North Valley Vista. I went to my first mansionization meeting 9 years ago. It was very early. It's sad to see that not much has improved. I'm surrounded by mansions, a 10,000 square foot house on one side. The developer knocked down all of our trees and our fence when we were on vacation. There were
Just the
lawsuits.
committee.
Sorry, there were lawsuits, it was a nightmare. Just as a word of warning, be proactive. I had the head of DBS inspection on speed dial on first name basis. We could not stop this developer. He ran around the system, he knew the loopholes, we were no match for him, we really tried. So I hope things are better now than they were then. But you have your work cut out for you if you get a developer like we had next to you. Good luck.
Thank you. Sutton Street where?
Between Kester and Cedros.
Okay. Beth, I need
I'm gonna do it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then, the public comment period. Pardon? We're here till 10 o'clock tonight. There should be a security person here. Okay, public comment period on this is closed. We'll throw it open to the committee. Who wants to say something? Yes. Yes. Okay. The answer to this question is for me to take a vote. This is not the place to take a vote. We never take a vote. We try to do the best for the community. And I'm not going to start that tonight. Sometimes there's one person here who's going to have his rights trampled, and we need to protect that individual just like everyone else. This is not a place where the majority takes all this country isn't that way. So no, I will not take the vote. Committee, go ahead, Jeff.
There are a lot of thoughts from with the community. A lot of what they said would be relevant to zoning efforts in the future, which is not what we're talking about today. We're really talking about when we create an infant control ordinance to help Sherman Oaks and protect it from what everybody is concerned about, especially if you build a larger home than was intended by the Messianic Act. The issue that is really in front of us is about the bonuses. And there are 3 reasons to get bonuses. One is a total floor area for each story. And if the top floor does not exceed 75% of the lower floor, you will get a bonus. If the length of the exterior walls facing the street, if they meet certain criteria, you get a bonus.
Yes.
So there are 3 ways to get bonuses. And the bonus issue is what allows you to go from the
Who is a
current.
developer to build?
Right, well, whoever wants to build. Right now, the previous law gave you a 0.5 floor area ratio. So half the size of your lot is what you're allowed to build. Then, with the Mansionization Act, they tried to break up the massing of the houses, so we weren't getting these big boxes. They started to give bonuses, so that if you have the top floor smaller than the ground floor, you get a bonus. If you set back your facade facing the street, so not more than 25 feet is in one plane, you get a bonus. Okay? Then they have a bonus if you meet certain green criteria. To meet the green criteria today, this is after this was written, today there's Cal Green Act. The state Cal Green Act means anything that gets permitted, they already meet these green qualifications. That should not be a bonus. That is by code. The idea of giving bonuses for better aesthetics by stepping back the upper floor that we're bringing up the facade should not give you a bonus. That should be just part of what the Nationalization Act was to do, and shouldn't be a bonus. I feel here, this group, if we put together an ICO based on eliminating just the bonuses, it's a very simple ICO. The problem with a lot of the other communities that the ICO is very complicated, because complicated as original ordinance, therefore they're hard for anybody to implement. So we just say, go back to the original Masterization Act, no bonuses, we can have a very clean and simple motion. That's how I'd like to start the discussion here, and then I can follow it later.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a very good idea. I think it's good to have an ICO that has something very simple like that. It can be processed easily by the city council. I am a little bit, one of the speakers spoke about, the difference between the neighborhood that mostly is still intact and the neighborhoods that have already been there's already multiple mansions on the streets. And I think it's important that we are able to differentiate between those neighborhoods, because I do think it's unfair in neighborhoods that have already been pretty much broken up to impose, the ICO on that, on those districts.
Rick?
Well, just in response to that, I think that if you still can build a house, maybe it's not quite as big as the one next to you without all these bonuses, but it's still doubling the size of a 1,500 square foot house. I think that that's enough for the community, for the neighborhood. So I would say that we don't have to be able to build out what was built out and maybe not necessarily good and continue to do that in the neighborhood. We just go back to the no bonus. It's still a big house. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to mention, which has a big impact on the character of our neighborhoods, is the public parkway. And the public parkway is getting reduced because all these driveways are becoming wider. And then once they make wider driveways with less greenery in the parkway, usually they have to take out a tree or two along the street. So we're losing our street trees because of these wider driveways and diminished public
But they're
parkways.
allowed to take out city, but that city,
That's
they're
right.
allowed to.
Yes, if you're building a wider driveway. So what I'm suggesting is that in addition to addressing the issue of bonuses or no bonuses, that we just ask for something about limiting the width of driveways, so that even if you have a 2-car driveway in front of your house, you don't necessarily have to have a 2-car wide driveway.